Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's 3PL webinar. My name's Aaron Somerset and I'm the Business Development Manager for Starshipit. And I'm thrilled to be the host for the session and thank you all for taking the time today. We've got some amazing speakers who'll be sharing their insights. And alongside me today, I have Scott from Brisbane Logistics, Adam and Vincent from CartonCloud, and Geoff from Starshipit. So we've got a jam-packed agenda today. So before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. Today's webinar is about 45 minutes. So we'll be re-recording this session and there'll be a link to the webinar sent to you after the webinar. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to use the Q&A box. And if we have time for Q&A session at the end, we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. If you're having any technical issues, just please let us know through the chat and we'll do our best to assist you. So without further ado, I'll let the team introduce themselves and we'll work through the 3PL specifically, starting with you, Geoff from Starshipit.
Yeah, g'day. I'm Geoff. I'm the onboarding manager here at Starshipit. So me and my team look after every customer that comes through our doors, just working to get them set up and using the platform as best they can and set them up for success, really.
Great, thank you, Geoff. Adam, over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. Adam Turble. I'm the Senior Sales Manager for CartonCloud here in Asia Pacific. I'd also like to introduce Vincent Fletcher, who's our Chief Product Officer and also founder of CartonCloud. So thanks for joining us, Vincent. Quick introduction, I guess, for CartonCloud in that for those that haven't been exposed to us previously, in that we're a cloud-based warehouse and transport management software solution. We have offices here on the Gold Coast in Queensland and also Vancouver, looking after our North American operations as well. Our solution looks to remove manual paperwork, automate processes and bring efficiencies such as increased visibility, increased speed and accuracy of receiving freight into a warehouse, as well as scan picking on an outbound process. We look to automate the warehouse storage and handling charges for invoicing in a 3PL environment. And we offer a easy to integrate solution into external software platforms, such as our partners today here on today's webinar, Starshipit. Also like to just quickly thank the Starshipit team for organising today's webinar. Really appreciate it, guys, and also for Scott and his Brisbane Logistics team for supporting us on today's Q&A. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Okay, lastly, Scott, I've got to introduce our man from the Brisbane Logistics team. Scott, if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
Yes, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me today. Only 3PL that's here, but I'll do my best. So yeah, my name's Scott. I'm Managing Director here at Brisbane Logistics. We're a small to medium-sized 3PL. Our warehouse is about 2,500 square meters. And just some background on I guess how I got to be here today, or how we got to be where we're at today with these two partners that we use. About 4 years ago, we were using an old school enterprise level warehouse management system, which I'm sure if I said it, everyone would know what it is. Quite a big one, and we just felt we couldn't scale with that. And the reason why is because we've got around 50 clients. Each of them has different requirements when it comes to sending us orders, inbound, outbound, and how we dispatch the orders. So we made the decision about 3.5 years ago to move to CartonCloud. And because our clients range from e-commerce clients all the way through to clients that just, these e-commerce clients, actually, they send us orders. We can integrate directly into their e-commerce platform. But we have clients from there all the way through to clients that just send us orders via email. So having the ability to use CartonCloud to integrate all of them together actually has worked for us very well. And likewise, for Starshipit, we actually use them for our clients as well. Some clients want to control their own freight. Some clients want to use their own freight accounts, and some clients, we do the freight for them under our accounts, getting them volume discounts. So in all cases, Starshipit can provide a solution for that. And integrated with CartonCloud, it kind of brings it all together for us to provide efficiencies and scalability, I guess. So that's the reason why I guess that we were asked to be here today. And I know that we're not unique, but hopefully I can bring some perspective on how it can all work together.
Great, thank you for that, Scott. That was a good summary, and it's great to have you here on the webinar. So we'll just jump into our questions. So first question today, what is the most common challenges 3PLs face when scaling their fulfillment operations, and how can they overcome them? So we ask Vincent and Scott.
Yeah. Scott, do you want to go first from your perspective, and I can probably give a bit of a perspective of what we see quite typically across the 3PLs that we work with, if you want.
Yeah, so there's from our perspective, there's a couple of things. Probably one of the biggest ones would be just finding an efficiency between increasing the volumes and managing that increase in terms of processing those orders and then picking, packing, and then creating the consignments out the other side. There's a whole range of pain points through the scaling process as a 3PL, because for example, you guys, Starshipit and CartonCloud are kind of more technology companies, but we have to deal with everything from technology down to actually getting our hands dirty. But in terms of the technology side, if you don't have a scalable integrations, as your clients and your volumes in those clients increase, it's very difficult to manage that growth. So without the resources to manage the admin side, so what I talk about there is using CartonCloud and Starshipit allows us to scale on the admin side, so that then we can push all of that out very efficiently to the warehouse. And we found that CartonCloud and Starshipit has given us that ability to scale up, and also I want to sort of say scale down if that's needed for a client, or if it's a slow time of year. And as we go through the seasons, obviously November, December are very busy. So that helps us to scale up. I suppose outside of the technology side, other challenges that we would see as a 3PL is certainly the labor force and scaling that using labor solutions and ways that we can get the best out of our staff. And then also space would be another one when scaling, because there's no use telling a client that you can accept 100 containers when you certainly don't have the space to do that. So those are some of our big challenges as a 3PL.
Yeah, I think one of the points you hit on there is pretty common that we see is like 3PLs are often picking up customers that do vastly different things. It's like we might have a customer that is storing, like 30,000 solar panels, and then they're really good at doing that. And then they might suddenly bring on another customer that's distributing wine. And the workflows and the way that all of that operates and just the way that the facilities are laid out is totally different between those different product categories. And in often cases too, the customer's expectations are very, very different as well. And so I think one of the challenges that we certainly see for our customers is that sometimes they don't understand that. They're like, oh, we've just had this inquiry to store 4,000 pallets worth of some product we've never dealt with before. And we're kind of like, okay, cool. That sounds great. Like, we can help you get everything running in the software to handle that. But are you you don't want to sound mean, but are you actually equipped as a business to be able to operate in that mode? Because it is very different. And I find that in a lot of cases, it's our sort of implementation people kind of helping those businesses really understand, shipping out 3,000 orders a day of e-com is very different to sending out 80 pallets of solar panels a day. There are two completely different workflows that require different workforce operating in a different laid out warehouse. It's crazy how often we see that. It's like, we're great at this and we've just taken on this total other contract, and we're like, cool, we can help you technologically, but we've got to make sure that you guys can do the work too.
Correct.
Great. Thank you for that. In terms of the next question, Scott, I was just going to ask you to share some examples of how Brisbane Logistics have successfully scaled their operations within the 3PL.
For sure, yeah. So one thing that we noticed after we moved to CartonCloud was that I touched on it before. Space is an issue, and certainly Vincent mentioned there. It's a different skill set between picking solar panels or putting them onto pallets as opposed to e-com. And we actually, funnily enough, we do both. And the one thing that I think it's finding the efficiencies in your space as a 3PL in the space that you have and what you can provide to clients. So yeah, we get phone calls from all different types of customers, and most of the time, a lot of the time, we'll have to say no because we can't service those customers throughout our business and throughout what we do here from a picking packing perspective. And it's all well and good, as Vincent said, CartonCloud can help us deal with the customers that come in and want these specialized handling. But yeah, we have to make sure that we can handle it within our capabilities as well. We certainly feel so in terms of real world examples. I obviously can't speak to specific clients. But having the ability, we have a specific client, for example, that decided at one point to start pre-selling a lot of their goods, and that all sounds well and good when they pre-sell for a 2-month delay, like the way furniture companies do it nowadays. But the pressure that puts on us as a 3PL when the container or the containers arrive and we have to get all of that out in a couple of days, that's a different type of pressure than daily picking packing. So having the ability for CartonCloud and Starshipit to be able to provide the back end to do that in terms of processing the orders from an admin perspective, and I probably am repeating myself a little bit, but processing the orders from an admin perspective to allow us to do automated freight out the other side allows us to then look at the way we do things in the warehouse in a different way for that sort of job. We can say, well, this is a special job. We have say 200, 300 orders that have to go out in the space of 2 days, but we can process that out in the warehouse as long as we have everything in order on the admin side, so that we're not making those mistakes inside of we don't have to do manual entering of data or manual selection of freight, and allows us to sort of get the goods out as quickly as we can, and the client's happy, we're all happy, and it works for everyone. So that's just one example of how something a bit different that we might have to do, and the way that the solutions can work around us.
I guess in terms of some other things that we've seen, like CartonCloud itself started out because we, like myself and a friend of mine actually from school that I started this business with like 12 years ago, we had our own refrigerated logistics company in Sydney, which we bought. We were both like early 20s. We borrowed some money off our parents and we bought this existing warehouse and transport business. And we sort of thought we can probably turn this around in terms of the way that it's operating if we can really automate a lot of the stuff that's going on. At the time, like cloud software was kind of new. Like Xero had been out for about 4 years. I think Starshipit kind of started at pretty much the same time, like 2012 or something like that, 2011. So it's quite interesting how we kind of formed at the same time. And we really looked at it and we were like, what's making this business run so inefficiently is just the fact that like we're getting emails for orders, kind of to Scott's point before, and it's crazy. Like we then have to go and key them into some other system, or like we're getting these FTP files but nothing integrates. And so we kind of just built the software based on the premise that we just wanted to basically like automate as much of that data entry and billing stuff as we possibly could. And in our particular business, like we basically got the software up and running and then sold that logistics company and carried on as a software company. Like I've got a lot of respect for Scott, because running a logistics business is incredibly challenging. And yeah, and I was pretty burnt out after 3 years of running that, to be honest. But we kind of took that model, and then we could sort of, we've got like countless examples of businesses around, Australia, New Zealand, and now North America, where it's like what was kind of holding them back was administration overheads, was really an inability to be able to put more volume through their organization without having to kind of linearly increase the number of staff that they had to process that at the same time. And that was kind of our issue. And we were kind of able to, I guess, disassociate the amount of stuff that we could do from the number of people that we had to have to do it. And in our particular case, like we had 3 admin staff in a business that only had like 12 staff in total. Like that's how many people it took to just key in data and then manage invoicing every week. And at the end, it was like, we'd redeployed 2 of those people. We had 1 person working like sort of a 2/3 role, basically, to do the same amount of work because we'd streamlined so much of it. So that was our own success story. And now I guess we just assist, businesses like Scott and hundreds of others sort of in the area to kind of help do the same thing.
It's really good, some really good points there, Vincent, and it sort of bridges the sort of next question that we've got around how does sort of technology and automation and how that can be leveraged to improve warehouse productivity and reduce errors. So yeah, is there anyone, Geoff, have you got any sort of points around that you think you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I think Vincent said it quite well there, without actually saying it, and just saying let the technology do some of the heavy lifting for you. I've worked in logistics for close to 10 years now, and even in the last 10 years, there's been a massive change in the amount of technology that's not only coming to market, but it's also being used in warehouses. And like the guys were saying before, around just improving efficiency to avoid mispicks, or choose multiple couriers, or let the automations choose different couriers based on size, weight, destination, all that sort of thing. And even then the other side of it is like how you look after your clients as a 3PL as well. Technology can create the reports for you. They can do the invoicing automatically for you. You can create things like DICOT reports based on what the couriers are achieving for you, and all that sort of thing. And probably most importantly is around just ensuring business continuity. So you've got backup plans for if something goes wrong. I got reminded this morning of a really good story. And a few years ago, I think it was like 2016, 17, TNT had a big hack, and the customers ran scared. And the amount of, I was working in a logistics company at the time, and the amount of people that didn't have an alternative to them that came, and they were chasing their tail, trying to get new accounts set up everywhere. And it was just, the world was burning for them, and they were letting their customers down. So just having something there in technology to make it easy to pivot as and when you need to really just stands for itself in making a successful business.
One thing you said there is interesting. It's like, I think a lot of people, they kind of couple together increased productivity with reducing errors, but often those two things are at odds. So like, we've had customers come to us saying like, I want to scan everything. And we're like, okay, cool. Does your product have barcodes? And they're like, no. We go, cool. So what are you going to scan? And they're like, we're going to put a barcode on everything that comes in. And I'm like, okay, that's a huge job. Are you sure you want to do that? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Until they get the first container and then realize that they've just spent like a week trying to put barcodes on products to put them in the shelves. And I think it's one of those things where often it's about looking at like, am I mispicking? Are there other things that I could do to avoid that? Like, do I really have to barcode everything just so I can scan it? And by the way, I mean, we offer scanning technology, right? So it's like, it works really well, but you've got to know which problem you're solving. And if it's efficiency, then you can often pick stuff a lot faster if you don't scan it. You just got to make sure you don't pick the wrong product. And there's other ways that you can do that, like physically separate the stock, which looks identical but is different from one another, doing things like that, as opposed to having to scan everything, or implement scanning and your error rates will go down, but it does take longer to do that. So I think part of it is people, sometimes they just go all the way to one extreme. It's like, I'm going to scan, I sell fruit. I'm going to scan every banana. It's like, oh, okay, good luck with that.
So I'll just touch on one thing you've said there as well. it's one thing to, you know, have scanning on the way out, but, you know, it's on the way in as well. It's the accuracy of inbounding as well, because if you get that wrong, then everything, you know, errors flow from that. I don't want to pick on the error side, but, you know, we do a range of things here that go from, yes, we do have some clients that have barcodes that scan. We have, you know, so about a year ago, I had a phone call from someone wanting to come in here, and he said, "I'm going to put barcodes on everything." I said, "Great, let's do that." And got to the first lot of stock. Half of it was barcoded, half of it wasn't, and he still to this day describes things in descriptions instead of SKUs. And that's a challenge that we have to deal with as a 3PL, because you don't always, not every client wants to. I can sit down and I can say, you cannot come to our warehouse if you don't put a barcode on everything, or we don't have it all standardized. But that's not real life, and that's not how a lot of our clients work. And I mean, I don't want to, I'm not blowing the trumpet of CartonCloud here, but by using CartonCloud, it has allowed us to use all of those different, you know, for some clients we use scanning, some clients we use pick sheets, some clients we use double checking, because, you know, our clients require, you know, exact picking. We will do, and a lot of things we will do double checking if we're not scanning. And that's important as a 3PL, because for us, every error we make costs us, you know, double or triple what the the money we might make out of, or more, you know. And so it's not just that, it's on the shipping side. We need to make sure that, you know, there needs to be solutions for, you guys mentioned TNT earlier. Well, you know, there's got to be rules around all of their surcharges, and how can we make sure we're not making mistakes sending to residential addresses when we should be sending to businesses. And all of these things come into play from our perspective, because we run on, you know, very thin margins. So the less errors we make, not just from picking, but from freight and all the other sides of what we do, you know, we've got a better chance of making it, you know, to the next day, so to speak.
I think even just talking about some of the sort of automation and technology, and I think that especially in the market, you almost have technophobes that don't want to sort of adopt different technologies, where the reality is it's just trying to get some time back, and the more time you get back, the better quality your output is, which means you're going to have better customer service and satisfaction, really. So just jumping into our next question here. How can 3PLs ensure they're delivering exceptional service to their retail customers? So Scott, is there any points from you around sort of what you're doing in Brisbane Logistics around that sort of exceptional service?
Yeah, I mean, when you say retail customers, I'll just speak to our specific, I guess, our client base, and just briefly just sort of say that, you know, a big thing we like to sort of say, look, if we're not getting phone calls from our customers or our clients, that's a good thing, obviously. And I guess it was touched on earlier, but the reports that are provided, the ability for our clients to log in to CartonCloud and see exactly, you know, all of their stock levels, all their orders, all their purchase orders, you know, all the tracking that flows back from Starshipit. They can do all that in one place. They don't need to ask us any questions. And if they are asking us a question, it is probably something that we do need to jump on. So, you know, we've found, certainly found that has increased, you know, satisfaction from our customers. And that's just one example. You don't have anything else?
Yeah, you've summed it up really nicely there. I've kind of noted down myself a few points of keep the headaches away. So by doing that, you keep your customers informed, and you know, whether that's your customers specifically or your customers' customers as well. Like, you can offer a post-purchase experience that just lets them know the package is on its way, or it's about to be delivered today, all that sort of things. But also potentially offer a point of difference. Scott talked to earlier about his ability, because of the technology he uses, he can either use their own courier accounts or the customers, or like his clients' courier accounts. That's a point of difference that not every 3PL can offer, but is a potential green light for someone to come to him instead of someone else, because they feel like they've got good rates, they've got that relationship directly with the courier. yes, they may have to manage it a little bit, but there's benefits that come along with that. So I think, yeah, having something there that offers a point of difference compared to your competitors as well.
Great, thank you for that, Geoff. Scott and Vincent, are there any sort of major trends that you're seeing within the 3PL industry at the moment?
I'm happy to go first if you want. I think we're certainly seeing, like, obviously this got accelerated massively by COVID, but businesses that were exclusively non-e-com, like 3PLs that were maybe just in food, or potentially just in like alcohol. We have a lot of customers that are exclusively in craft liquor distribution. We're seeing more and more of them having to do aspects of e-com type work, and it's just becoming more of an expectation. It's like previously they might have just been doing, say, B2B type work, like delivering into bars and clubs and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm talking about alcohol now. But then all of a sudden, you know, one of the businesses that they are that they're distributing for, the brewer, for example, goes, oh, you know what, we've just opened a Shopify store and now we want to deliver direct within Sydney. And then they're like, oh, okay, that's quite a different model. Now we've got to do, you know, like 200 deliveries a day rather than like 5. Well, not 5, maybe, rather than like 40 or 50. So we're certainly starting to see that, I think, kind of permeating into everything, where more of these companies are not just sticking with their sort of more, I guess, like old school B2B sales channels, and they are going direct to consumer. And so as a result, like your 3PLs have to kind of be able to handle both of those modes more often. And they work very differently, as I spoke to before. So,
yeah, from our perspective, I mean, we can only sort of go on what our clients are bringing us, and there has been a change, absolutely, to less, you know, the B2B model. They're doing that at the same time, but obviously doing more of the, you know, yeah, I've got a Shopify store as well, and can we support that? And so there'll be less emails. Can you do this, please? To going to more automated Shopify, you know, integration. So that's probably one of the trends. And as you said, COVID and certainly exacerbated that technology.
Even just being at the Online Retailer Awards, just having a chat to the partnership manager at Ozpost, and the stats from them are incredible around what e-commerce in Australia, and I think it's over 60 billion by the end of the year what e-commerce will be worth in Australia. So if you don't have a solution for e-commerce in Australia, then you probably should, because it's coming pretty quick and it's coming pretty fast. So some really good points there from you guys. So thank you for that. In terms of coming into the peak season, we've got a question around sort of what are we doing to manage the peak season and unexpected surges in demand?
Yes. Is this one? Yes, this is for me.
Yes, Scott, any
yeah, I mean, I'll start off. I'll kick off here on this one. So obviously, yeah, peak season. I think there's certainly, when someone says peak season, obviously, you know, Q4, the Christmas season is the obvious one. But I think I'll just touch on this point. One of the advantages of, I guess, business advantage of being a 3PL and having a range of clients is that, funnily enough, almost every client has their own peak season. And an example of that is, you know, for example, we have a client that sells a coffee-related product. Their peak season is sort of now, or, you know, they do more now. So we can adjust things as we go through the year. But obviously, yes, the majority of the peak seasons are moving into Christmas. The ability to scale up and down with both CartonCloud and Starshipit, as I said before, is critical in doing that, and having the integrations ready to go when that time comes. So, you know, there's no use sort of chasing your tail and starting things too late. If you know that a client's going to be doing a certain amount at a certain time, then that's important. And having that communication with those clients, just to know when the sort of promotions they're looking at doing, their projected volumes. That's also very important. It's something that is sometimes missed in these conversations, is that we're very much directed by our clients, who are directed by their clients, and so there's a big communication that needs to happen there around how that looks, and so that we can manage it within our organization, all the way down to making sure that we have the staff available to pick and pack the orders. But in terms of from a technical standpoint, again, CartonCloud and Starshipit certainly allow you to very quickly process orders, as long as the integrations are there. So using the integration team at CartonCloud has always been very helpful for us, to get those things done as quickly as possible, and to make sure that we can do that. And then on Starshipit's side, their automation rules for shipping make it very handy, and the ability to use all the different freight carriers that we can use, and very quickly create the labels. That's very important for us in managing those cycles.
Tried to make it easier for, I guess, 3PLs to bring on sort of temp staff. So, and I guess Starship is the same, like focus a lot on trying to make the software super easy to use, as intuitive as possible. Obviously, it's inherently going to have, a bunch of settings that you can turn on and off somewhere, but we try and make it that, what the person's actually doing on the floor is very straightforward and simple, I guess. They should just get it. I think that's super critical, because at that time of year, it's like you might just end up pulling your office workers down into the warehouse temporarily to just help get through orders, and they might never have used a scan gun before, but it's like they need to learn in the next 15 minutes because you're drowning in work. And I think that's something where, like, before we'd built CartonCloud for our own business, I remember it was just a disaster. Like anyone else trying to help our warehouse guys pack any order, because it was like, okay, so where is this thing? And they're like, oh yeah, that location's like down there in this back corner, up on this thing, and you go down there, and it was just, the stock wasn't there, or it was somewhere else, so it was just a disaster. So yeah, I certainly feel that we sort of help those businesses to be able to kind of quickly onboard people and get them operational, to just help them through, because fundamentally you are going to need, in most cases, some extra hands to just get through stuff.
Yeah, both Vincent and Scott, you raised really good points around just having contingencies in place and how quickly you can get that set up, which I think is obviously really important during that time of year. Scott, is there any specific challenges or sort of pain points that you were sort of facing before you implemented CartonCloud and Starshipit?
Yes, absolutely, which is why we implemented them. Manual processes were a big one, and as I think someone touched on before, you can actually go from 3 admin staff down to 1. Invoicing was the other one, and it's not just you can send a client an invoice that says you owe us this much money, but there's so much more than that, because they want to know, what am I spending all this money on? And CartonCloud allows you to attach an Excel document with every invoice that basically breaks down every single charge at every single time for that week, or whatever the billing period is. And so you might get some more questions around those sorts of things, but it also alleviates. Customers can very clearly see what they're spending their money on, and so that was a huge change, actually, when that was implemented, and it's very automated as well. So the ability to do that is great, as long as you're keeping up with all your things during the week. It'll create it every week, no problems. So yeah, just the manual processes and the invoicing was a big one, and then moving into, and I'm 3.5 years on, we're still not using all the features of CartonCloud for sure. There's a lot of different things that we could probably be doing better at, but having the ability to, the locations and all those things, that the standard warehouse things. But yeah, it's kind of managing all of that together, and it creates a lot easier warehouse to deal with, I suppose, is the best way to put it.
Hey, Adam, what would you say is like kind of the top three reasons that people can't even contact us.
Yeah, I think probably rehashing a lot of the things that we've talked about already. I think removing manual paperwork and processes, so to automate things, exactly what Scott was just talking to, whether that's automating the invoicing, whether it's automating the picking process or receiving process to be able to handle scaling. So that would be the other thing. I talk to dozens and dozens of 3PLs, on a weekly basis, and I guess the common thing with all of those potential customers is their requirements vary every single time, and that's because your 3PL's customer may have very varying requirements. So the other thing that I think they're looking for is a flexible and scalable solution that's agile to be able to support either a volume increase in a peak period or a change in requirement. And what we talked to, earlier with a change from B2B to B2C with, after COVID, the traditional retail channels for selling are not there. It's not all through major, shop fronts in a shopping center. It's online and it's home delivery. So integrations is the other thing. So I guess to summarize that, automation of invoicing, having a flexible and scalable solution, and then also from an integration perspective, because, in the last few years, we've seen smaller companies that perhaps were just happy to get off manual paperwork and have an online system. Even those smaller companies are now needing integrations to be able to stay competitive in the market.
Bring some good points around just obviously having that information flow, being able to sort of track payments, costs, invoicing, that kind of thing. And Geoff, you might be able to weigh on this around just managing shipping costs, and if there's some best practices for sort of reducing those, and probably a really hot topic at the moment, but whether or not you've got any kind of points or techniques around what we do in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, the most common one and probably the most important one is using least cost routing, right? So utilizing tools like Starshipit or being able to see it in CartonCloud, the cost of shipping for the destination. And you're always going to be sending something from origin to destination, but not every courier is the same. They're not always going to cost the same. And it's being able to see those costs and potentially automate the selection of that courier based on trying to choose the cheapest option. And like Scott mentioned before, like couriers, they'll have different surcharges, but they'll also put them on at different points. So potentially understanding where those lie as well. TNT is a good example. Scott mentioned before about residential surcharges. So knowing, okay, if I'm doing this for a B2C client of ours, then we probably won't be using TNT for an example, because a lot of those e-commerce deliveries do go to homes. Especially as more and more people are working from home these days as well. So yeah, using something like that to see and then manage your shipping costs that way, but being able to pass on those to your customers as a 3PL as well. No one's going to complain about cheaper shipping costs ever.
Oh, we've had it. Well, look, different. Not all carriers are created equally. So we will also get some of our clients will say, do not use this carrier. So we have put a rule in for that as well. So that does happen.
Do you use much reporting, Scott, around kind of managing and defaults and that things with carriers?
Not a huge amount, I'll be honest. We supply obviously the freight to our customers, and we do some reporting around individually to customers. But yeah, not a huge amount. But happy for you to talk about it a little bit.
That's great, and I appreciate that. We've probably got time for one more question, and this is sort of relatively open panel, but it comes back to that: how do we stay competitive? How do 3PL providers stay competitive in the current market, and obviously moving forward?
And talk to one thing which I've seen happen a bit recently, and this is not related to systems or anything, but rent has gone up heaps in the last couple of years, right? Like if anyone's on a lease and that lease expires, their new lease is like could easily be 30% higher than what they're already paying. And we've certainly seen some customers get stung pretty hard when they've got long-term contracts with their customers. So like the 3PLs have signed up someone and they're kind of on fixed rates for storage or for picking and packing or for delivery, and they can't manipulate those rates fast enough given their increase in cost. And it's one of those things where you're often like, oh, this is awesome. You know, I just got like a 4-year contract with whatever global company, you know, to do whatever it is. But then when your rent doubles sort of halfway into that cycle, it's like this, we've seen customers shut down over that. And I think that's just one thing to be very like wary of at the moment. I know that doesn't come into any software-based decisions, but like, it's just, I think, be quite wary of stuff that you can't manipulate fast enough if you need to. Because we've seen customers turn over as a result, like literally just go out of business because they couldn't make it work. And I'm sure Scott's probably been in this situation at some point. I know our business certainly was.
It's just not, it's having your customers on contracts that you can do things with them with that specific. I think there's always an understanding from customers, from our, certainly has been in the last few years around, you know, price rises and that sort of thing. And, you know, sometimes, you know, they'll be like, well, I can get it cheaper here, and here's how. And then when they actually go off and look at that, and you actually break it down, because there's much more to a 3PL than just pricing. You know, they then realize and go, oh, actually, that's not the case. And, you know, and we've certainly had customers go other places. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying we're the greatest, but they'll come back and they'll be like, well, we shouldn't have moved, you know. And for them, for our customer, it's a big expense for them to actually move. And that's, you know, that's the advantage of being a 3PL, is that, you know, if you're giving good service, then your customers, they rely on you, and you have to, it's trust both ways. And so, yeah, when you're talking about competitive 3PLs, a lot of, you know, the first question is always, what's the cost? And unfortunately, it's so much more than that. And we have to kind of prove ourselves time and time again that it's more than just the cost. And so, but yeah, I totally understand every side of it.
Thank you, Scott. Unfortunately, that's probably all we've got time for today. But I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the panelists and Scott, Geoff, Adam, and Vincent. Thanks so much for your time, and thank you to all the participants that have come through and watched it. We'll make sure that this is obviously sent out to you all. If you have any individual questions, then we'll make sure that the contact details for each of our speakers are available as well. QR code's up there now. If you want to scan the QR code and get some further information post the webinar, then please do so. But otherwise, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you next time when we get to share some more information from our industry experts up on the panel here. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks so much for organizing.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Joining.
Bye.
Bye.